Was this exciting? So this was a little bit of a snooze fest, to be quite honest. Unfortunately, we're kind of back to the slow pacing that we had from before. So basically, it starts to pick up with the scene with the Senator Mon Mothma. But really, you got to get past the first 10 minutes. So this kind of has the feel of maybe like a 60s spy show. So most of the pacing or the inspiration, I would say, for Andor is kind of retro, because the pacing really kind of reminds me a little bit of like I Spy in terms of how they go, like an espionage show, basically. The synopsis, briefly, is that Cassian makes some choices after he gets his cut from the robbery, and some of those choices actually take him to not such a good place. That's the gist and the most important storyline. There are, of course, like 3 or 4 overlaying or other storylines that happen at the same time. There's the Luthen storyline on Coruscant. There's the storyline with the Senator. There's the storyline, I guess, branched up with Vel, who we get to see again in this episode. But we have also Cyril, who gets employed again. So it's good to get some clarity on what's happening with many of the different characters. Then we also have the intelligence community within the Empire, and basically the intelligence analysts. Like we have Miro, and we have her supplanting Blevin in the Ferrix area. So these are good to know, or rather good to have clarity on what's going on with these different situations. But really, the way that they structured it really was not very exciting. And then really, the anticipation, or really how I entered it as someone who's maybe looking at it, I was expecting them to not drop the ball and keep the action going full throttle. But that's not what happened. It's kind of like we dived off of a cliff after the last episode. Now, is that because of Schiff's writing? I don't know. Is that because of Karen's directing? I don't know. But I do know that it just didn't really work. And that's sometimes the problem they have with some of these different series, where they have a bunch of different writers and directors who are not working on every single episode. Because to be quite honest, the feel of the different episodes are quite different. So the episode that I really liked was by Smith. I believe Susan Smith directed episode 6, and then she directed some of the other episodes that I think were like okay. If this is the direction they're going, I don't like. What would have worked best for me would be really if they had spent more time on the Andor storyline, or if they had brought the Andor story to the front and that had been the first 10 minutes, because that would have had us sort of like, well, what's going to happen? And then they could have brought in the more stodgy storylines or the political intrigue after. That might have made more sense. But what we have right at this moment, I guess they figure it worked, but I don't know if it really works for the average audience member. I don't know if it'll really keep their attention. If you're not really a hardcore Star Wars fan, I don't know if you're gonna like hang in. For the average person, maybe, they're probably not gonna hang in, unfortunately. So that's the only real problem I see with some of the writing that they have at this point. And the fact that they keep going back to this really, really slow pacing, and the really, really slow pacing just doesn't work. I don't know if this episode worked.